Good evening. This is the Wind Turbine and Alternative Energy Committee. And we have two major items on today's agenda. One is a presentation from National Grid, Mass Save, on ways that you can save money in your home. And I know the gentlemen, their time is tight, so I'll let them begin. And if you'll introduce yourself.
All right, great, thanks, Bob. I'm Greg Krantz. I'm a program manager in energy efficiency with National Grid. And so what I'm here to talk about today is the energy efficiency programs and incentives available through National Grid and Mass Save. So I just wanted to start by explaining what Mass Save is. So Mass Save is really a conglomeration of all the utility companies in the state to run really seamless energy efficiency programs. So here you have National Grid Electric and Instar Gas, or their name is changing to Eversource. So the program is is sponsored here by National Grid and Instar or Eversource. So there are basically two ways to save energy. So the first is called conservation, and that's basically altering your behavior by turning down your thermostat, remembering to turn out lights, stuff like that. And that's really behavioral energy savings, and you can get lower utility bills or whatever by basically just making sure you use less. The other way is called energy efficiency, and energy efficiency is that you live the same lifestyle, the same your same behaviors, leave the lights on as much as you normally would, or leave your thermostat as it would be, but that you have a more efficient home or more efficient equipment in your house or more efficient appliances that actually use less energy. So it's living the same lifestyle, just using less energy. And of course, the best is a combination of both of those. But the main thing Mass Save is focused on is efficiency, making more efficient homes, more efficient equipment, appliances, stuff like that. So the benefits of energy efficiency is, and this is our understanding from all the feedback we've received from customers, is comfort. Comfort is a big one. Not having cold, drafty spots in the home, stuff like that. Less noise. More efficient equipment is usually quieter. More efficient homes. The equipment usually has shorter run time, so you don't have equipment running as much, making a lot of noise. Of course, dollar savings through lower utility bills, and then reduced pollution and greenhouse gases. So there are a lot of opportunities out there. Some of the biggest opportunities for people to save energy is things like incandescent light bulbs. Some of the new efficient light bulbs on the market today use a quarter or even less of the energy. You get the same light, just a lot less energy, and lighting is a big part of the energy bill. Another one is people using electric resistance heat. So these are like the baseboard electric heating strips. Those are real inefficient and use just a tremendous amount of energy, and there are a lot cheaper ways to get heat. Just drafts, just having a drafty home is, if you're taking your, heated air and just kind of, your draft comes in and your heated air blows out the other side of your house, that's a big energy loser. Little or no insulation, and then old, inefficient refrigerators or water heating equipment, or heating equipment. So ways to be more efficient, and this is really what Mass Save is focused on, is basically stopping heat transfer. So right now in the winter, it's stopping your heat from escaping from your house. So installing more insulation, better windows, stopping drafts, and then also using more efficient devices in your home. So making sure you use that highly efficient heating equipment or air conditioning equipment or water heating equipment, the efficient lighting we talked about, and also efficient appliances and other products. By looking for the Energy Star label is a great way to know you're buying the right stuff. So National Grid and Mass Save have a lot of different programs, and I'm gonna go through all the programs right now. But kind of the flagship program is called the Home Energy Services Program, and a lot of you may have heard commercials on the radio. Get your home energy assessment today, that type thing. So those are commercials for this program. So that's basically for residential homes that are either single-family homes or attached homes up to 4 units, like single-family homes, duplexes, stuff like that. And you can participate in the program if you heat with any fuel. So if you heat with natural gas, oil, propane, electric, or even, sometimes we see people with wood or corn pellets or other kinds of biomass. So the program is a two-stage program. The first stage of the program is to get a home energy assessment. The second stage is to get air sealing and insulation. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that on this slide. So the first stage is no-cost home energy assessment. So National Grid or Instar will actually foot the bill for someone to come to your house and do an assessment on your home. So they do a complete review of the home. They look at your insulation. They look at opportunities to do draft stopping. They look at what equipment, what lights you have installed, what appliances. They do a combustion safety test because what we've discovered over the years is there are a lot of homes that have mechanical equipment that's not vented properly. And a lot of times you have dangerous flue gases leaking into people's homes. So we don't want to create tight homes and trap those dangerous gases in. So that's an integral part of the energy assessment. And basically what they'll do is they'll identify energy saving opportunities, and then while they are there, they'll also install what we call instant saving measures. So this is efficient lighting, LEDs or CFLs. And just as a side note, the program is moving a lot more toward LED lighting. People like LED lighting a lot more than the compact fluorescent curlicue light bulbs. They'll also leave behind smart strips, which are just kind of the strip of outlets that you can plug into, except you can configure them so that if one main appliance turns off, like a TV, it'll turn off connected devices like cable boxes and stuff like that. They'll also install water-saving devices, so like low-flow shower heads, faucet aerators, and then they'll also install programmable thermostats, which you can set on a program. So when you're gone at work, you're not heating your home up to 70 degrees. You can let the basically turn the thermostat down. So that's all free. Everything I went over. We're not supposed to use the word free. We're supposed to use the word no cost. So that's all no cost. Then the second stage, if you decide to go ahead with it, is weatherization work. So this is doing the air sealing, which is also called draft stopping, to stop the drafts in your home. That can be done completely at no cost. And then insulation in the home, So if there are opportunities to do wall insulation, like in the picture here, or attic insulation, or crawl space, then National Grid or Instar will cover 75% of the cost up to $2,000 per home. So it's a pretty good deal. I did it in my house before I ever worked for this program. To me, it's a complete no-brainer. The way to participate in this program is to call 866-527-SAVE, and someone will, excuse me, and then they'll schedule someone to come out to your home to do an energy assessment. Or there's another kind of path you can go through to kind of choose your own contractor. And that list is here. This is kind of a super long link that I doubt a lot of people are going to remember or write down in time. But if you go to the Mass Save website and kind of poke around a little bit under the contractor section, you'll come across a list to choose contractors. So there are a few other similar programs. So if you remember, I mentioned that program was up to 4 units of attached homes, so like duplex or a row of townhomes. There are also multifamily programs, and this is for 5 units going up to hundreds of units, which is a real similar program, but their aim is to weatherize the whole building instead of just one unit. There are also income-eligible programs, so for people who are at the 60% of the state median income level or below, they can get actually even better incentives than I mentioned through the Home Energy Services program. And then there's also a program for new construction. There are a program for low-rise construction under 3 stories, and then a mid-rise and a high-rise program for higher buildings. So any questions before I move on to the equipment section? Okay. So
You have to pick a contractor from that list?
from the list, you can either call the 1-800 number, and they'll send someone out for you. They'll send someone out, and you don't have to worry about picking a contractor. Or if you want to choose and interview and see who's coming to your house and pick your own contractor, you can choose a contractor from the list.
But they have to be on that list.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, another question.
Can you benefit as a renter in a multifamily home, or would the benefit really be seen if the owner of the home is the one who initiates the...
Yeah. So you can benefit as a renter. There are some nuances because you can't really make permanent upgrades to a home as a renter without having the owner's permission. So a lot of times, if you want to do bigger stuff like do air sealing and insulation, you're going to want to involve the owner of the home. But if you just go through and you want to take advantage of the light bulbs or shower heads, then that's something you can do.
Okay.
Do you have to do what they say as the contractor's priority? In other words, he says insulate the attic is your best choice, but you would prefer that you had them put in a new door? Cut out the drafts.
Yeah, there are certain program measures that are recommended through the program and incentivized through the program, like air sealing and insulation, and some that aren't, like doors and windows actually are not incentivized. But of the recommendations that the energy specialist makes when they're there, you're free to choose to do what you want to do.
So it's not like you have to do certain things that are recommended in order to qualify for other things, which is, well, you know what I mean? There's
Yeah.
certain steps you have to do this before you qualify
Yeah,
for this, and you have
yeah.
to do this,
if your attic needs air sealing on the attic floor, they'll want you to, because it makes common sense, they'll want you to air seal the attic floor before you dump a, foot or, 18 inches of insulation on top of that. So, there are some situations which are prerequisites, but also, there is also the ability to pick and choose. So if they recommend insulating the attic and the walls, and you decide you only want to move ahead with the walls, then that's your choice. You can do that.
Greg, there are many older homes in Auburn, which means they have older wiring in some cases. I heard that you have a grant up to $2,000 for older wiring.
Yeah, that's a real good question. And so homes with old knob and tube wiring, that causes a problem because you don't want to fill the wall cavities with insulation because they'll come in contact with that knob and tube wiring. So it is a requirement to remediate the knob and tube wiring before getting insulation. And the grant is actually from the State Department of Energy Resources. It's not actually through National Grid or Instar or Eversource, but the Department of Energy Resources really tried to coordinate it with Mass Save. So if you're looking for that grant, then calling Mass Save, someone will be able to get you to the right person to administer that grant.
And that grant means you don't have to repay it, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, there are some details with that. Since it's a state program, I'm not 100% familiar with it, but yeah, I believe you don't have to repay it.
Is it income sensitive, do you know?
I don't believe it is.
That's good.
All right.
Something for all of us.
Yeah,
Well, that's good.
exactly.
But I think that's sometimes missed, and I think that a lot of people might be interested in having their electricity updated.
Oh, gosh, yeah. And there are a lot of homes with the older wiring
Yes.
that could use that. Yep.
Yes, thank you.
Sure. So some other Mass Save programs don't really focus on sending someone out to visit the home and doing air sealing and insulation. They focus more on the equipment and appliances inside the home. So there are real good rebates available for natural gas heating equipment and water heating equipment. So you can see here some of the rebates that are available. And also for oil and propane equipment, there are similar rebates available.
And could you tie this in with your spring program? Not that it's going to happen, but usually in the spring, these numbers go up.
Right, that's the next slide. The
I have-
early equipment replacement. So I believe this started in 2013. So in 2013, 2014, and again this year, we're going to run a program that's only going to run during the spring and summer, and it's for special increased incentives for boilers that are at least 30 years old, for furnaces that are at least 12 years old, and for air conditioners that are at least 12 years old. So people replacing this equipment, as long as the equipment's running, then it's considered this quote early replacement, and the homeowners can take advantage of increased incentives for this.
And the difference, I believe on your website, was something for like a steam system, oil-based, was like $400 to $500 up, and it went up to $1,700 in the spring.
Right, those were the levels last year, right? We don't have levels this year yet. They're coming soon. This program should be launching in April sometime.
April.
Right,
Thank you.
sure.
Can you explain the difference between a boiler and a furnace, please?
So there are a couple different types of boilers. One type of boiler is called a forced water boiler. And what that does is heats water that does not turn into steam, but runs through basically baseboards or radiators in the home. to warm the home. And then there's another type of boiler that's a steam boiler. And that boiler heats water till it becomes steam, and then the steam disperses throughout the home. And then it cools down, it releases its heat into the air. The steam cools down, turns back to water, and returns to the boiler through pipes to heat up again. And then furnaces is actually heating the air that's dispersed through the home, rather than using water to move the heat around the home.
Okay, so a furnace is forced out air, whereas a boiler is forced out water or steam.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly,
That's it.
exactly, right,
Thank you.
sure.
For the air conditioners, Greg, does that include wall units or just the central systems?
That is central systems. Yeah, thanks for asking that question.
Greg, sometimes it's difficult from people when they come over to your home to give you estimates on replacing furnaces, to really get down to the nitty-gritty about which of their furnaces are more efficient and how much more efficient are they, to see if they're cost-effective. Do you have a source on your website that's easy to go to that spells it out, that, this furnace A is 87% efficient? Another one is
Not
80.
not in terms of name brands, but the furnace, the literature should have an AFUE rating on it. And for furnaces, basically the higher the better. So for gas, propane, and oil, for gas and propane, real efficient furnaces usually start around 92 AFUE or 92%, going up to, I think the highest ones are like 97
Wow.
ish range. And then and then for oil, efficient units are in the 80s, and I think there are a couple manufacturers that get into the 90s, but most of them are in the mid 80s.
I think a lot of the people who do this work in the state are familiar with it, because I went through this program and we replaced our boiler. And so I presented the requirements to my plumber, and he gave me 3 or 4 options that would fit the requirements, and then we could pick which one we wanted to get. So he knew we would still be eligible for the discount, so.
Oh, that's good to hear.
And he
Yeah.
knew exactly what it was and which ones would satisfy the requirements, so.
Okay. Oh, that's great. Yeah, there's an outreach program to contractors and supply warehouses to try to really get the word out across the state, so everyone knows about the rebates. And the idea is for contractors to already be familiar with them when they're coming out to give an estimate, and let homeowners know that there are rebates available.
Does that person sell you the oil too, or gas?
No.
Which is quite common in the state of Massachusetts. They do both.
Yeah, no.
So if you use more, they get more money from you.
Yeah, conflict of interest.
So,
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because
It's been going on a long time.
yeah, I wanted to go off on a short tangent about something, and that's that when a lot of people see these programs and they know they're run by National Grid and Instar or Eversource or Columbia Gas or whoever it is, and they think there may be a conflict of interest with why would National Grid want you to use less energy when they're selling you energy? But the way that the state set up the program is that the National Grid and all the investor-owned utility companies in Massachusetts are regulated. So these are actually programs that are mandated by the state. So National Grid, we have intense reporting requirements back to the Department of Public Utilities and the DOER about everything that happens in the program. So we went over gas incentives and propane and oil, and there are also electric equipment incentives. So there's a program for central air conditioning and air source heat pumps, which you can get up to $500 for systems. And the air source heat pumps are a real good alternative to the electric resistance baseboard heat that I was talking about earlier. There are a couple different kinds. there's one kind that's called a mini split air source heat pump that a lot of people are using to save a lot of money on their electric bill. And then there are also heat pump water heaters. So people who have electric water heaters that are electric resistance, heat pump water heaters have come on, I guess over the last 5 years, they've just really taken off in popularity. They're, they take about a third of the energy that's required for electric resistance water heaters. And it's a real big energy savings. And that's a great rebate. A lot of people think the $750 rebate is the best rebate going in the whole Mass Save program.
Now, when you say electric resistant, is that just the standard electric hot water heater?
Yeah. So basically, instead of a standard electric water heater, you can get the heat pump water heater. They're really becoming popular. There are, thousands or maybe even millions of units nationwide. The big manufacturers, Rheem and GE and Bradford White and all the water heater manufacturers have heat pump water heaters, and they're a huge energy saver.
So Greg, I'm trying to keep a running total here. You can get a house audit for and get up to $2,000 in energy credits, right?
Right.
You can get a grant for your electricity and get another $2,000. And you can also get a $750 for your water heater too? Because that's almost $5,000 in credits.
Yeah, but that.
Yeah, I missed
credit,
I missed the
doesn't count
grant.
How much it's gonna cost you. These
Right.
credits don't
Right.
cover the entire.
But if I were putting them in there,
Oh, yeah.
I'd eat the whole cost.
Yeah.
So now we're almost up to $5,000 for a homeowner.
Yeah,
And it's like an unknown relative died and left you money.
yeah, it is. Yeah, this
like
is
found money.
Yeah, a great program. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So.
Keep adding these up. I want to see it go higher.
Okay, so there's the heat loan, which is if you're making energy efficient upgrades and you're meeting all the, program requirements for energy efficient equipment, you can take out a 0% interest heat loan for up to $25,000 for up to 7 years. And I forgot what the average is, but this is another few $1,000s because that interest
Sure.
adds up,
Yeah.
So this is actually the Mass Save sponsors, National Grid or Eversource or whatever. They actually buy down the interest rate. So this is a real good incentive.
And for the people at home, if they have perfect credit, they don't have to worry. If they're a little lower, do they still give them the loan or?
I don't know exactly what the requirements are. Different banks are different. So I know I think
so it's
something like
being-
85% of the loans are approved, but there are some with bad credit that aren't able to get the loan. And this is, some projects can get up to $50,000 for this loan, and that's also not directly through National Grid or Eversource. That's actually through the Department of Energy Resources again. Part of the same effort where they have the grant for remediating the knob and tube wiring. They also have programs where if someone's doing a real comprehensive, what they call a deep energy retrofit on a home, adding a lot of insulation, a lot of energy saving measures, they can borrow more money. Landlords can also borrow more money through this program. But the funding from the Department of Energy Resources is also limited. So anyone who's interested, better to call sooner than later. So there are other energy efficiency rebate programs. Some people may not even know about them. When you go to Home Depot and you want to buy an LED or a CFL, the price of that lighting is already bought down by the utility companies. Same thing, power strips. There's a refrigerator recycling program, room air cleaners, pool pumps, and a few other products. So you can see the link there. Again, masssave.com. There's a list of rebates available.
Greg, some of these are seasonal and some are all year? programs?
Yeah, most of them are all year. The early boiler replacement that I talked about is just in the spring and summer. And I believe everything else is full-time, year-round incentive. Right. All right, so that was it. Any other questions?
I want to thank you very much. Are you going to give me a number so people can call you?
Yeah, it's, masssave.com, and then, I didn't put it in the slide presentation, but, my number is, 781-907-4006, and, that's my office in Waltham. So, all right, well, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you
Take
so
care.
much. That was wonderful.
All right, thanks.
It's wonderful. And I want to thank the planning department for going through the schedule. You know, it wasn't easy. And we've had a hard time getting rooms in the last month. And this is the first time we've been here, and we may use it in the future. Mr. Mitchell mentioned the police department has a room also that can be used. I didn't know that before. So we keep these as options because we've had to cancel a couple of meetings because we didn't have a space to meet that wasn't handicapped accessible. The third floor town hall is not handicapped accessible,
Right.
so that won't work. Okay, we can move right over to the, unless the planners had something to add to that, we can go right over to the minutes.
I do have the minutes from the last meeting. I don't believe we actually approved the
We did not.
previous two,
We
which
did
I
not.
provided copies at the last one. I did not bring them,
Yes.
so hopefully everybody still has it.
Right, and we can talk about those two now. And there's a couple of ways we can do this, and the one way I'm going to choose is this one. If any, since we have a majority, if anyone has an objection, wants to make an addition or a deletion to those two sets of minutes that Maureen just referred to, I'd like you to speak up now. The only one that I would like to see added to it, thank you, is that usually when you have a motion, you need to put down the name of the person who made the motion and the person who seconded it. And that means that when I was instructed to write a letter, not a draft of a letter, but a letter, Mr. Backus made the motion, and I believe it was Jeff Mitchell who seconded it. If I'm wrong, correct me. The second thing is usually we put next to the chairman, whoever it is, their name is the chairman, and also the secretary. That's so they know who to go after if they have questions underneath these things, so they can narrow us down quicker. Other than that, if no one has any objections, additions, or deletions to any of those minutes, I would ask that they would be accepted now and can be given to the town clerk. Thank
Do you
you.
remember which session was it?
It would be the one where I was instructed to give a letter,
Okay.
to write a letter. But not a draft. I was instructed to write a letter. And the reason for that, it was time sensitive. The select board was going to vote on that next Monday. There wasn't time to have another of our meetings to go over a draft.
It was the letter for the accepting.
Don't accept the $1 million.
Right.
So you have use of the land for the town in future years, for whatever the use might be. I would ask that you read these later, and we'll go right on to the planner's report.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And since our last meeting, I've been able to get up to speed with what this committee's been trying to accomplish with selecting a consultant for the DPU approval. And in doing so, I was able to find a lot of information on the DPU application process. DPU being the Department of Public Utilities. And I know I just circulated this around today, and this isn't anything formal, it's just my notes on some findings, and I want to share a handful of things regarding the three companies that we're examining. One of them being Good Energy, Colonial Power, and New Hampshire Council. Okay, I know this type is kind of small, I apologize. It looks bigger on the computer. But before I do so, I just want to break down a couple of things, and you may know this, you may not. I just want to see how knowledgeable we are on this thing. So just want to go through the chain of how this works. So supply, distribution, broker, consultant. Okay. So suppliers are where we draw the power. This will be companies such as Constellation, such as Major Energy, JEXA. Suppliers are the ones that are going to get the rate straight from the core. Let's say the rate come in, what's the company in Northampton, Bob, that
Hampshire Council of Governments.
no, not them. There's a company in Northampton that regulates all these rates for everyone in Massachusetts. It's not Hampshire, it's someone else. I forgot what it's called. But anyways, they set the rates, and let's just say that that rate is 50 cents. I know it's not right now. Okay, I wish it was. All right. By the time the supplier gets to distribute that rate, they're going to add what's called mills. And mill is a commission to give them money, to grant them money. So the supplier is going to offer this to the customer and say they're offered a certain amount of markup. Okay, that price just went up. Okay, distribution for us is National Grid. We already know that. Okay, so for now there's a broker involved that got us the supply rate. Okay, this is someone like Good Energy, Colonial Power, and Hampshire Council. Okay, they're going to give us a rate with commission. Okay, certain amount of commission that they're only allowed to do with their suppliers based on the contractual obligations they have with their suppliers. Okay. Now, we're talking to a consultant, the person who's going to handle our DPU application. The ones that we have shown a certain increase at that amount. Okay, so they get their piece of the puzzle just to handle the DPU application. So as you can see, even though there is a flat rate involved, there's a lot of steps involved here that get these companies money throughout the process. Commission, you guys probably already know this. Okay, I just wanted to go through it for the people at home. All right. So right now, we're looking at 3 companies that are brokers. We have Good Energy. We have Hampshire Council. We have Colonial. So let's do CPG. Sorry for the handwriting. All right. I don't know if the group knows this now, but Hampshire Council is also a supplier. They have a company called Hampshire Power. Okay? They're the only one of these 3 companies that have a sister company known as Hampshire Power. Okay? So despite the nonprofit status that this company may claim to have, their profit comes in the form of a subsidiary known as a supplier. Okay? Companies like Colonial Power and Good Energy, one in particular, Colonial, is contracted. They have 6 contracts. Okay, 6 contracts. One of them is Hampshire Power. Okay, so you'll notice in your matrix, right on the first page, on the second line item, we asked the 3 aggregates, or consultants I like to call them, what do you currently charge your customers? Okay, Good and Colonial both told us that number I showed you earlier, that point. That 0.001, the half a mil, or the 1/10 of a mil. Okay. Hampshire Power listed 11 towns with certain rates set already. Okay. It just so happens that these 11 towns are actually customers of Colonial Power. Colonial Power did the DPU application for all 11 of these towns, but the winning bid for supply was Hampshire Power, not Hampshire Council. So let's not get that confused, okay? So I think when Hampshire fills this out, they're showing us what Hampshire Power is getting for them. It's fine. So Colonial did the applications through DPU. Hampshire Power won the contracts for the supply rate, okay? The other thing I want to point out is, before I get too far into this, and I don't want to take up all day, I'm sorry. All three companies have to renew their annual DPU license or approval, and that's to be an electricity broker for suppliers. All three of them are up to speed. They're all up to date. Okay. For the DPU application process, it takes 12 to 24 months, depending on who you are, or depending on your experience with this. Okay. DPU application. All right. Right now, New Hampshire. Oil. Good, okay. Right now, to date, today, 9th, the amount of approved DPU applications for all three of these companies
In Massachusetts.
in Massachusetts, thank you. Looks like this, okay, since 2007, all right? Currently, Hampshire is working on a contract that has 37 towns. It's submitted as a bulk application in 2011, June. Took 2 years, and then it was withdrawn because they listed themselves as the applicant, and it created a conflict and would have given all the power for all 36 of these contracts to Hampshire instead of the towns to have the ability to manage their contract. So I had to withdraw it and resubmit them all individually. So then they did that in 2014, March. All right? Submitted them all one at a time. In doing so, they've either fired or terminated an employee who sent in the bulk application. His name was John O'Rourke. Okay? John O'Rourke then was hired by Good Energy. Okay? So now Good Energy, as you'll see on your matrix, is saying we now have this employee who filled out 30-something, some odd applications through the
38.
DPU process and has experience, when we are looking at their current application that was withdrawn and never went through. So Good Energy.
He filled it out, but he did it wrong.
Oh, yeah, he did a job on it. So right now, Good Energy is kind of toting him as their expert, and we've learned that he failed. Anyways, so now that these have, Hampshire has all 37 of them lined up individually. Throughout this process, since it started in 2011, 3 years plus later, the town of Belchertown canceled their contract with Hampshire Council to have this done, citing excessive amount of paperwork, misleading information. This was done at a Board of Selectmen meeting in September of last year. Okay. They canceled their contract, all right? The other ones have not. The application then led to a hearing request, and I forget how I called it, an evidentiary hearing at the request of National Grid. It turns out that there's a conflict of interest that Hampshire Council, on their contract, has a supplier that happens to be Hampshire Power. So it's a sister company. The Attorney General caught on to this and said, and opened an investigation. And the investigation's been open since December 1st, and it hasn't been concluded yet. All right. So we tried to get some information on its status, and Eric and I called the attorney that's representing them on the DPU website. His name's James Avery, and he expects it's called an order when the DPU application is approved. Say they issue an order of approval or disapproval. Expects an order on all 37 cities and towns within the next 2 to 3 weeks, whether it's approved or not. Okay. He also made reference and made it clear that they have hired Colonial Power to handle that application, to make sure it went through. They took it out of their commission, split it. It's Colonial Power. It's part of their contract.
So Hampshire Council hired Colonial Power.
Correct. This isn't new to them, because as we know, there's 11 other towns, you'll see in your matrix, that have been approved since 2007, where they also contracted, where Colonial Power handled it, and then they hired Hampshire to do the supply. So they've had a relationship for a long time, and they work together. But since they tried to do their first application after watching all the success that Colonial's having, didn't work, now they're trying it again, hired Colonial on board to help them with it, and sitting in investigation right now. So that's where that stands.
Matt, now,
Yes.
the approval that you were saying within the next 2 weeks,
Mhm.
that's with Colonial Power's
Help.
heading, let's say, on the application, to be approved through DPU to start brokering for electricity.
It would
correct?
be still under Hampshire's name, they just subcontracted to Colonial to help them with the application. So if it were approved, it would still be Hampshire's approval. And all of a sudden,
Okay. Now that goes to,
Hampshire would become the big dog in town.
so
if that
where,
gets
so
approved.
where does the conflict of interest status lay right now as far as the conflict between broker and supplier?
That's what we don't know yet.
Okay.
So if the Attorney General's investigation proves that that is unconstitutional or a conflict of interest, then the order would be negative or not approved.
They wouldn't approve it.
Right.
And this is why I brought up and gave you the story
Hmm.
on companies that put in heating systems.
Oh, sure.
This is exactly why I brought it up. These conflicts of interest
Hmm.
have been going on in the state of Massachusetts for a long time.
Sure.
How many heating companies in central Mass can install your boiler, they sell you the boiler, and they sell you the oil or the natural gas that go with it?
Absolutely.
Almost all of them.
Yeah. So, we're
That's the
seeing-
small ones don't.
Right,
Well, that's why you have to do your own homework.
right.
You know, when they say, okay, we're gonna install this boiler or this furnace, you need to do your own research, find out the efficiency, the efficiencies and whatever, and say yay or nay whether you want that installed.
Right,
As far
which
as
is
the
why I
equipment.
asked him if there was a website to make that simple.
Right.
But it's not quite as simple as,
No, it's not. It's not a
It's
simple
not,
process.
no.
You
And
definitely have to do your homework.
and the language may be that of a technician to understand, there has to be someone almost in that field to understand what they're saying on the forms. And the big companies have this conflict. And usually they're selling the oil at a much higher price. My question
Sure.
is there anything in the way they operate, whether it be the Hampshire Council of Governments or either of the other two, that would stop them from finding us the lowest price possible for our citizens?
Yeah, just in the way that they can work the contract. So when they get their, each of these three companies has contracts through X amount of suppliers. I know for, just by speaking with Colonial, they have 6. Okay, so if, for
Well,
some
there aren't-
reason,
There aren't that many suppliers out there.
there really aren't, you're right. And
Yeah.
let's say out of the 6, if they gave us the rates for all of them, they're gonna get a base rate from from the supplier that already includes the supplier's markup.
Right.
Right. And then when they give us the rate, say, that's the supplier, sorry. Obviously, these rates are way low. These don't reflect what they currently are right now. All right? So this is, sorry, or way high, I apologize. This is our supplier, and this is our broker, being, let's just say Hampshire, okay? They're gonna give us a rate, like, with markup. It's just going.
So is there transparency between that bidding process and what they share with the customer?
No.
So you take it out, so you gave that example where they said all of them were Hampshire Power.
Right.
So-
We just noticed it because all 11 of those were listed on Colonial's website.
So they said they have 6 suppliers,
Yes.
and on all 11, you would assume that Hampshire Power was the best rate.
Was a little bitter, yeah. A lot of those towns are in Western Mass.
Yeah.
that helps, but.
But there's no transparency from our end for them to come back and say, we had 6, here are the 6.
These are all the bids.
Right.
These are the bids.
Yeah.
Do you get to see that?
I don't. There's 4 other towns that don't have Hampshire, but the lowest bidder at the time, maybe, we don't know, because they had 15 total.
Now, this is an open system. These, once the bids are recorded and they go on, you talk to other town planners.
Yeah, oh, I'm sure
The
the
town
information's
manager
available.
talks to other town managers. If this stuff is all publicized, if
Yeah.
the newspaper found
Of
one
course.
was charging one, there would be a great article for them.
Right,
The natural competitive aspect here, I think is gonna take care of that whole thing.
agreed.
Because the next time around, they won't get a contract with anyone if they found that they were charging more.
Right.
The one variable that you haven't put up there, which you need to put up there, is different times of the year.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that.
These prices change drastically.
It changes twice every year.
And
Once in
that's
May,
how-
Once in November.
That's how Colonial and Good Energy and Hampshire can beat National Grid, because
Sure.
National Grid is tied by the law to buy
Yeah,
twice a
right.
year.
That's right.
And once Hampshire finds out what National Grid is charging per kilowatt hour,
Right.
which is the key question for anyone at home to ask,
Right.
whether it's solar or anything else, what are you paying per kilowatt hour? They wait with their contract until someone offers them a lower price. But if the National Grid bids at a good time of the year, they may actually beat Good Energy and Hampshire Council of
Right.
Governments.
That did come up once in my discussion with Brian Murphy from Colonial Power, is that one of their towns, at one point when the rates dipped significantly, this was
Right.
2009, 2010, somewhere right around there, rates dropped almost 5 cents kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
For those first G3, C3
Right.
businesses. So for the town, they noticed that National Grid's rate was lower than what they were providing their customers, so they I forget how he put it, took a break from the contract and let their customers get back onto National Grid's rate, and then were able to reinstate it by going back through the entire process when the rate went back up.
That would
So-
cost them a lot of money, because they had to buy a certain amount of electricity for a period of
Right.
time,
Right, right,
which is why people, when they're signing up contracts,
Right.
for contracts now, they want them to sign up for 6 months,
Mhm.
a year, 2 years, 3 years at a certain rate,
right.
and with a certain amount for a penalty. If the penalty isn't too high, it's a good deal.
I think I did that.
Take the penalty and go back into a lower rate
It's
at
kind
any
of
time.
like the cell phone buyout that everybody's doing now. You know, they're
Yes.
trying to get you to join their cell phone plan, we'll buy out, you know, up to $350 early termination fees.
So a precedence was set in the Marlboro case, 2007. This was Colonial's
Right.
application. That precedence was that customers can opt in and opt out of this contract at any time. And before, there was a contract and you couldn't. So now, all 3 of these brokers are going to be offering that same thing, because they have to.
Now,
That's
before you
what
just
it
jump on these, I checked with a company that's highly advertised now in Massachusetts,
Hmm.
though it's not from Massachusetts. 2 weeks ago, they were offering a very nice rate. This last week, I can't find them on the web anymore. And they don't recognize my zip code. So there's something to be said for a company that's been around for quite a while.
Sure.
Because we have people coming in from all over the country. And whether or not they stay here is another question.
Right.
As far as the competitiveness with the state and finding out what is a conflict of interest and what isn't, I think the town managers and town planners and citizens are going to be watching these rates very carefully in the future after this last winter. And if somebody's rate is going down, that company's going to pay a terrible price.
All right.
And to go back to when Jeff said, why is Hampshire still listed? If Colonial Power wanted to be listed as the buyer for the towns, they would have to go back to those 37 towns and have every select board vote in favor of them as the buyer of electricity, and all of their town meetings. That would take, I don't know how much time.
Right, so they were just subbed out. They're not listed as
Right.
as Hampshire is, as the aggregator.
But you have you have a lot of checks and balances. You've got the state watching this very carefully.
That's what this application is for. The whole reason for this, let me make one thing clear, is that we're not going to settle on a rate before this application is approved. So this application has to get in, get through all the DPU channels, and then we'll talk rates. So by no means do we need to know what they're charging customers right now to see who's the lowest. We just need to know who's handling these applications the best, so they can get us through the application and then choose our suppliers.
And do we know within that DPU process if there is any level of transparency where they're accountable for reporting that, or attesting that they actually did get the lowest rate?
The rate wouldn't come until the approval is done. Then we will examine those.
Could we
But-
put something in our contract with them
Yeah.
that we would want to see that?
That's what I was gonna
Absolutely.
ask.
Absolutely,
I
yes.
I can't see how they can say, no, we're not gonna show you the bid process.
All right.
Yeah.
Another thing, and this might be a stretch, is we could outsource a separate utility broker to get the lower rates. I don't know if it's possible, but you could actually see the base rates from the supplying companies that you may not get from the person who's trying to sell it to
My worry
you. Yeah.
is that this committee started this process 3 years ago. Okay? If we had gotten into someone to buy the electricity, the people in Auburn would not have had the pain of the high electric bills this past winter.
Oh, certainly, yeah. I've taken 2 phone
You
calls
acknowledge
today
that?
alone. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
What's to prevent, it takes a while for this bidding process to go through, whether you think it's perfect or imperfect, possible conflict, no possible conflict, to prevent this from happening in October, November, December, January, February, and March of next year,
Right. Can't
where
tell.
the citizens of Auburn are faced with what I predicted, and I went before the select board, and I said, it's not a 37% increase, it's 95%. And it was.
Oh, yeah.
And
Definitely.
in some cases, it was more. Because if you looked at the October bill and then the November bill, they were using, the 37% was over the high point of the previous year in tiny little print. So how do we protect the citizens of Auburn and get them the best prices if we don't make a decision fairly quick?
Right, and we have to make that decision on who's gonna start this DPU application, I agree, right away. But once it's finished, a year or less or more, once it's finished, we're gonna be looking at the rates of that time. And
Oh,
who's to know what those are?
We're gonna
So
have to
we're-
watch them like a hawk.
Yeah, that's right.
But anyway, we're an advisory committee, so we're gonna
Right.
make a recommendation.
Sure.
And then the town manager will have that responsibility of selecting. She may not select any of these companies.
Right.
If we keep waiting, there are companies coming in all the time and information coming in all the time. We'll never make a decision.
Perfect example is Good Energy. They just showed up out of nowhere. Now, they claim to have X amount of towns wrapped up into a contract already, but they have no active applications with DPU. Which I know it takes some time to put those together, but they're still not on their website.
It took me quite a while to get that answer out of them when I asked how many active customers do you have in Massachusetts. He didn't want to answer it.
Right, they'll list the thousands of residents, but they won't, they don't actually have approval from DPU. So technically, it's still zero.
But I think if we look at all the different businesses in the state of Massachusetts, the oil company selling the furnaces and selling the oil to the same customers. This isn't right across the state of Massachusetts, and maybe the country, I don't know.
That's why I was kind of, the red flags went up when I saw that Hampshire was not only looking at a commission on their power company, but a commission as a consultant for the DPU application. And that's when the Attorney General really got him,
But
I'm glad
the
to see that.
Hampshire Council of Governments,
right,
they don't make a profit, they make a surplus.
through Hampshire Power.
But Hampshire Power is, like you said, a sister company, but they're probably not the nonprofit.
Right, that's right.
They're the profit part of the nonprofit company.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Correct.
Whereas, and getting into, I was reading some of the information from the AG's office as far as their .001 fee and all
Right.
this stuff. Is it a fee? Is it a fair and equitable fee?
Right.
Is it a tax? And I went through some of the same issues with some fees through my department. It's called the three-prong test, and that's more or less what they're going through. Is it a fee, is it a tax, or, who does it benefit? And there was a description in there that it would benefit only their Hampshire Power customers rather than everyone that they represent. So the more you read, the deeper and deeper and deeper it goes. So as far as the conflict itself, it's still in the AG's, the AG's hands. They're the legal, to make the determination between them and DPU.
Right.
And if there is a conflict, if they become our broker, can they broker or make a recommendation to Hampshire Power, even if they are
Yeah.
the lowest, you know what I mean?
So you set a time limit on how, in the contract.
Well, another thing that could happen, Jeff, if a precedence could be set with this order, if they say that, okay, Hampshire, you can do this with Hampshire Power as a subsidiary, but you're gonna take a fraction of that commission. So then we may be looking at a lower
A better-
consultant rate,
A better rate, yeah.
if that precedence is set.
Well, this is the question I ask you as the planner. We have to make sure that they will guarantee that they are going to find us the lowest price for electricity.
Right. I mean,
That's what I'm interested
No,
in.
I understand. I think one of the things that we need to know, and I'm not sure if this matrix asks that, is how many suppliers do you have under contract right now? I don't think the matrix asks that question. All I know is that Colonial has 6.
But
Just 'cause I talked to them.
again, let's say there's a dozen of them out there. But out of the dozen now, they have 6. 6 could be the lowest
Yeah.
consistently out of the dozen. You know what I mean? So they wouldn't contract with the other 6 because they're always too high.
Right, yeah.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Right, sure.
Depending on the time of the year.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
Right.
And now,
The moon aligns good with Mars and, all your planets align
and how much
everything.
oil and natural gas they purchased in
Right,
advance. I
absolutely.
mean, it's a very complicated area.
Sure.
Which is why you need a broker to do this for you.
Or at least the consultant for the application. The broker gets you more rates. Instead of
Now, what's the difference between broker and consultant?
Sure, the consultant is only handling the DPU application. That's
But
all.
it's the
Right.
same company as both
Yeah.
consultant and broker?
Yeah,
correct?
that's correct. Same
Different
company.
divisions of the,
I
well,
don't-
could be the same.
Is there a
Yeah.
conflict there? I don't see.
It depends. It's all experience. Brokers are allowed to submit applications as consultants. It's not an issue. A lot of utility brokers have either never done that before or have no experience doing it. So Hampshire was that company for a little while.
So they're a good broker.
Yeah, yeah.
But they handle, like you said, subcontracted Colonial Power.
Who had the
to be-
experience.
To be the consultant per
That's-
se.
that's correct.
Okay, that's good.
Well, why did the state wait so long to tell them to hold back all these 37 or 38
When the
applications?
Attorney General intervenes, and when I was speaking to Jonathan Goldberg, he's an attorney and the hearing officer for DPU applications. So when the Attorney General intervenes, this turns into a long process overnight. So there's, I'd love to show you guys how you can see this on the website, because there's a laundry list of requests for information, responsive information.
Right,
Requests for,
yeah.
it never stops.
I
Here's a
can believe
letter
it.
of recommendation from the state rep, and it's just a mile long.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of parts to it. And then you have the distribution company, National Grid, asking for a hearing to see the legalities behind it. There's a lot of little pieces. There's a public hearing behind the whole thing, too.
And then there's comment periods.
Yes.
On the public hearings.
There's a lot of
And then
pieces.
you can comment on the comments.
And is National Grid on the English Stock Exchange?
I don't know what you mean.
It's not an American company.
Western Mass Electric is
So
on that.
National Grid, I said.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
I think they listed in England. So, I mean, they probably don't want to lose the business either, but,
Sure.
But like you said, National Grid, their hands are tied. They can
in
only,
some ways.
they buy it
Yeah.
at this point and
Yeah.
at this time of year.
I don't want to make them into a victim because they're making a lot of money.
Well, of course they are, but
Yeah, and this
But-
past year, it was an obnoxious amount. I think and all these things once the pipeline is built, probably in New Hampshire and Vermont, that a lot of these things will simmer down because the cost of natural gas will go way down for many years.
So I know that we're hoping to make a decision shortly or soon.
What is your recommendation then,
Well-
tonight?
My recommendation is, if I were to choose tonight, and if I was one voice on the committee, I would be leaning towards the consultant with experience, that being Colonial, and that's just for the application. However, because Hampshire's is sitting in the Attorney General's queue, waiting for an order, that order could reduce their consultant fee by half.
I mean, if the 37 communities,
Yeah, depending on the ruling. If it was reduced by half because they have a supplier attached to them, they say, okay, then your consultant fee has to drop. That could set a precedence where if we were to engage Hampshire Council for this application, they'd be looking at a much cheaper commission.
But we have a time frame on when they're going to hear on the DPU, but not on the Attorney General piece.
Right. All we know is,
Speculative time frame.
right, and
What was the speculative?
it could take, these things could take a year, they could take 18 months, it depends on who's doing the application. For the city of Lowell, Colonial Power did their application, they got it approved in, was it 10 or 11 months? It was one or the other, 10 or 11 months. And that's a much larger city than ours.
But they were at the .001.
Yes, yes.
Commission.
But so the DPU application could get approved, but the Attorney General's decision, could that in any way reverse? Or how is that going to?
It wouldn't reverse it, it'd be through the application process. Approval couldn't be granted without Attorney General's questions being answered.
Right, and the attorney that we spoke with, he speculated that it was about 2 to 3 weeks.
Right.
That he thinks the AG
Well, issue his order.
will issue his order.
Yeah.
And then the DPU will either grant or deny the applications.
Or have it with conditions granted with strict conditions. We don't know.
Right.
Now, was the feeling that DPU is ready to go, they're just waiting on the AG's?
We also had an election recently, which has moved a lot of hats in that office, so I think they're trying to get people settled in to handle some of the backlog, and this is one of those things, considering there's 37 towns tied into it.
Mhm.
And one of them has to get removed from that application, Belchertown, because they terminated the contract. So there's a little bit of...
well, the process has taken so long, you ask, why has the state made a decision?
Mhm.
Right. Well, their process is about a year old now, because after they did the bulk application in 2011, they didn't resubmit individual cities and towns until March of last year. So we're at about a year now. It's at an average time for these
I
things.
think that this is
Yeah.
going to get speeded up.
I think so. And that's what James Avery, the legal counsel, who just happens to work for both Colonial and Hampshire Council. That's what he said. He feels in about 2 to 3 weeks they should know. So I'm not asking the board or advising anyone to say, let's wait until that happens, but it may not be a terrible idea. But then again, the longer we wait, if our application, say we submitted in May, okay, and then we don't get it back for another year, May is when the rates historically drop, and we'd be looking at low rates to examine. It's just a thought. Because even if we choose one today, they still have to put your application together. It takes some time, and then they put it onto DPU, and that starts the clock for what seems like a year to get this approved.
I'll bet those applications don't look much different except for the names on them.
Yeah, I would think that, I'm actually more inclined to believe that they take longer to put together, only because I'm looking at Good Energy, and they've signed some towns in October, September, and they still haven't put an application into DPU yet.
Mhm.
So,
Wow.
yeah,
That's bad.
right.
Wow.
So there's more to it than just choosing them. I believe the Board of Selectmen, Town Manager, and myself have to organize the language within that contract before it goes forward.
But I think the fact that Hampshire Council was put through the ringer on the 37 applications, and then they had to submit them as individual
Right.
applications,
It seems more of an
means
error.
they've got a lot of experience in rewriting them.
But that person left and went to Good Energy.
Well, I thought the person who left who wrote the original ones.
Right. That's right.
But they have
We don't
all
know if he
been
wrote
resubmitted.
the other.
We don't. Colonial Power was subcontracted to do that.
Right, so he probably didn't.
Well, he would
We
not.
don't know.
He could have written them for Colonial Power.
No, he doesn't work for them. He only
He
works for Good.
Energy.
Oh, Good Energy.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
so,
right, I'm sorry.
I'm,
I know they were bragging about him being on the team in here.
right. I did speak
The
to,
Matrix.
and I didn't get his put his name on this note, but I spoke to the energy manager, lack of a better title, for the city of Lowell, and he was nothing but good things to say about how Colonial Power handles this thing. Furthermore, that was done in 2012. Just recently, this past Monday, last week, the DPU approved an application for an adder. The adder allowed the city of Lowell to make money off by adding a commission onto the deal so that they could pay for the salary of an energy manager and some other improvements that they needed throughout the city. Because they were a green community, so to speak, these things qualified for the adder, and they were able to generate income to support some things for the city and town. So it set another precedence. This just happened last week. And that is another neat thing that Colonial has experienced, and I don't believe anyone else does right now, that could generate income for our town. Right now, I believe your salary is being paid through a grant that we have, and having that sort of position full-time through the adder, I think is a great pitch.
Now, who do we, now, let's say we pick one of the three. They draft the contract with us and the application and whatnot. Who is out there that we can have review this to make sure that A, the application is done right, and B, the contract is in our best interest?
That's a good question.
You know, kind of like a peer review.
Right,
We
sure.
do that for plans and,
Sure.
and other things.
I think
I think town council reviews all
Well,
contracts that we
he
enter
may not
into.
even be familiar with something like
But
that.
I'm not so much,
I
I'm
know
not
what you mean.
so much worried about the boilerplate language, you know, making
I know
sure
what
all
you
your i's are dotted and your t's are crossed and the commas and wording is correct. It's the actual meat of an energy contract.
The one other company I hadn't mentioned is Cape Light. They actually have more approved DPU applications than Colonial Power, but they're restricted to the Cape. We couldn't.
Yeah, I heard they're not taking any more.
Right, exactly. So they could possibly review it. So that's the only one I could think of that, other than Peregrine Energy, and that's a small company, that has gotten an application through DPU. So that might be an
Okay,
avenue
so
for
the
Peregrine.
critical question is who's good at getting this approved by DPW? So Hampshire Council, right?
Not yet. They
Not
haven't
yet.
proven it yet, yeah.
I understand.
Right.
Good Energy didn't even submit them for
Right.
months.
They have their experience in other states, but Massachusetts is different.
Well, it's a different wolf.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, and they should see the turkeys at my house.
I didn't see them.
You're a lucky man, 'cause they don't back down. And it seems like Colonial Power has already gotten some approved in a period of time.
Right.
So we're saying that the Hampshire Council hasn't gotten any approved yet.
Right.
We're saying that Good Energy hasn't even submitted these other ones.
Mhm.
And we're saying Colonial Power has met with some success
Yes.
So
in a
on-
shorter period of time.
On the surface, it
Over-
looks
On the
like Colonial
surface, they have an
Power-
edge in this one area.
Yes, yes.
In getting the applications through
That's right.
a state that's really tough on paperwork.
Right, and they've, it's been, since 2006 was their first application. So it's
Which
been-
protects us, you know, protects the town, protects the citizens.
Right.
The state is trying to help us.
Mhm. The first application was the Marlboro one I mentioned, which set the precedence for customers to be able to opt in and opt out of contracts at any time. That one took, oh boy, it was a little over a year because of that language. So there was.
Sure.
they had
Like
to figure that out.
negotiations
That's right.
and review. and-
Yeah, once
Right.
these happen, you know, they have to go through them faster than this, I hope. But it's the state, so,
I mean, on the surface,
you know what I'm
what we
saying?
just said,
Yeah.
you know, I would want to go with Colonial Power, only because of the
They've been
what it looks like
successful.
on the surface. But I also like the way Matt's thinking as far as waiting a couple weeks or a few weeks or whatever to get all these other issues resolved, that
Yeah,
we may be able to see a savings,
yeah.
you know, on the consultant fees.
To wait that 3 weeks, if it's 3 weeks, it might
Honestly,
be
I don't
4
think,
weeks.
I don't think a month or even 6 weeks is really going to, I mean, it might, you can get out 6 weeks.
We're March now, April, and it takes months to get these things going. Next bid process is, how long would the state then take them?
But there again, we could tell them that we don't want them to bid or to start looking for supply until May.
Right.
or whatever, you know what I mean? If it's historically,
Did they start looking, or isn't it until they actually get the approved?
I believe that the language can be entered into the contract. So if this was approved in December, if it was in the contract, say, not till May when the rates drop.
I mean, they're
They could
more,
go and buy that, but we can't actually use it until the DPU contract gets approved?
I think they would also want to wait to buy it in May also for that
Wait
lower
for the
rate.
approvals.
They may already have the power.
But, very true. Very true.
yeah, they may
These
have that
companies
one.
may already have bought
That's right.
bulk amounts of power.
Yeah, we're not-
They're just
we're
looking
not
for
Boston,
customers to pay for it.
So when I think back to Bob's statement earlier about how long this has been, this has been discussed.
Sure.
You have two scenarios here. You have one where you have one that's already made it happen. And then you have this other that could be a better deal, but it's predicated all off of assumptions.
Right.
We're assuming we're gonna hear back in 2 weeks and not 6 months. We assume that what we hear will be something favorable that will be more beneficial. I wouldn't bank on the assumptions. I've also worked for a company that has been under the investigation of the AG, and that takes forever. They move at their own pace and what works best for them. So it very well may be 2 to 3 weeks, or it could also be 6 months.
Right.
So I guess when you think about the relative time that could go by, the savings would, in my mind, and I'm doing the fuzzy math, the savings would have to be pretty substantial based upon each month that goes by. You're just diluting whatever that potential benefit is. So my recommendation would be go with Colonial Power. The only thing is I would like to have a little more insight into how transparent they would be with the bidding process first. I think it's just a concept that we hadn't really thought of before. But when you see,
Definitely a good point.
when you see the ones that they have and you see the majority are going with one, that doesn't necessarily mean something's wrong there. But if there's no collusion, if they're willing to be completely transparent on the bidding process and share with us, because I can remember from the presentations, they're very clear to say, here's what we got you based off of National Grid. Well, if you're that comfortable doing that, then show us what all of the options were.
Right.
I think at least how they respond might maybe either give us a little more comfort that that's the right place to go. I don't want to hold it up anymore either, but I wouldn't hold it up waiting for all the stars to align
Sure.
for Hampshire Council of Governments.
So I mean, I don't know what the feeling is. Either A, we can hold a vote or make a motion and decide on a company right now, or we could put a time frame and say if we don't hear any results of Hampshire Council by dates, a certain date certain.
With the information that we presently have, our best choice would be,
Yep.
that might be a way to do it at this point. With the information that we presently have. Because remember, we have people telling us to take, look at this company, look at this, another new company. I mean, that'll never end.
We could be doing this for.
We'll never make a decision. So with the information that we presently have, including the new information that you presented today, this is what we think is the best choice for the town under the time limits that we know it takes months to get this process approved.
Yeah.
So that the citizens of Auburn don't go through the economic pain that they suffered this winter.
Very true.
Or at least they have another option.
Although if we did decide to go with Hampshire Council, and they don't get approved within the next few weeks, couple months, they're gonna sub out to Colonial anyway.
They already have.
So they've already set their own precedent in order to get this moving forward.
Right. Let's say in theory.
Yeah, I'm just throwing some oil smoke, you know. Some more cloudiness to the water, but I
Hampshire
mean,
offers the town a lot of other things other than what Colonial offers,
I will
including health insurance.
add a couple of things to that. Let's just say in theory we were to use Hampshire Council, okay? They would sub out to Colonial to get this contract done, because that's what they've done in the past. Something that I learned in speaking with a relative of mine that works in the industry is that his company was trying to sign Hampshire Power as a supplier, and sent in the application and didn't hear from them. We called them, wouldn't hear back. When we finally got back, found out that the person in the office, there's one person in the office, only works on Tuesdays, and seldom answers the phone. So he said, you know what, there's better contracts out there, forget it. And that was 6 months worth of time. Now, again, this is just from information.
That was
okay?
the supplier.
Yes, I have since tried contacting the supplier on days that are not Tuesday, and I've gotten a voicemail. Same phone number that would appear on the bill. Oh, I'm sorry, apologize. Same phone number that he gave me, because the phone number doesn't appear on the bill for Hampshire Council, for Hampshire Power. So if a customer wanted to call them, there's no phone number.
The Hampshire that sells the power, not.
The supply rate.
Hampshire
Not-
Power, not.
Correct.
Not Hampshire Council
That's
of
correct.
Government.
Right, and Hampshire Council wouldn't put their phone number on the bill anyway. They're just a consulting nonprofit entity that's involved. Right. So.
Yeah, because the customer wouldn't even know
Yeah.
that Hampshire Council of Governments was even
Right.
involved.
And I know it's not fair, I'm kind of picking on them, and then it's just because I didn't look into Colonial if they had the phone number on the bill, and if Good Energy has a phone number on the bill. That's just what I heard from, about Hampshire.
You know, I thought it would be Hampshire Council of Governments would have an open phone number for us.
That is what we were
Maybe-
told by each company.
We were told that by each company.
For the town, yes, but with the customers and the
Not
citizens
necessarily
of
the
Auburn be
customer.
able to see that on their bill.
It would probably be us, but not the customers.
Yeah, I don't know if it would go on the bill, but
It
they
would.
definitely would get the notice
Right.
that they were enrolled in this program.
Right.
Yeah, that's, I have Eric's
Yes.
message, completely different from what you just said.
Right, and it just wouldn't appear on the bill, and under their supply rate, there'd be no phone number.
The person they bought the electricity from wouldn't be mentioned at all. The only one who deals with them is the Hampshire Council of Governments.
Correct, that's who would be dealing with the town. But the residents themselves, if they didn't call the town, and they just got their bill one day and said, oh, who is this? I forgot all about this program, or I didn't know about it, I can't call that company because they're not on there. So they're gonna call National Grid. National Grid's gonna say, you're in a municipal aggregation program, call your town. That's the only way that a citizen can get a hold of them, just because they don't put the phone number on the supply rate.
But to play
It's all
devil's
set.
advocate
Oh,
there,
sure.
how often would a customer need to call them for
Sure.
something? If they're calling, they
Right.
need to talk to National Grid because something's wrong with the electricity. So I could see it's possibly to eliminate confusion.
Understood.
So, just to kind of look at the other,
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, I can see that.
Right,
So-
the only reason you'd call them, like Maureen said, is if you have an emergency.
Now,
If
me,
you had a question about your rate or,
yeah, right. So that's the only thing I can think of. I have a supplier right now that's almost cut my bill in half, just, anyways. They, phone number on the bill if I want to call them. They don't send me an extra one. If I'm just curious, because my rate is fixed for 6 months. If I want to renew my contract, I know it's up, I can call them. That's just me. So.
Hope they're still on the web in 6 months.
Doesn't matter, he's got the rate now.
Yeah, I got it locked in, so.
He said it.
Well, all right, so we can wait. We can wait for 3 or 4 weeks, according to what that lawyer said, and maybe they'll come up with an answer for us, but that's the way government works. Wait.
Right, and this attorney does represent them, and maybe he's just telling me what he thinks I need to hear.
So perhaps our question is, should we be asking our attorney what we should do? This committee never spends any money. It has no budget.
To be honest, I think that if,
We're way before that.
yeah, I just think that's what the selectmen would do if they
Okay.
were uncertain about our recommendation for some reason. Say we didn't do our homework, you know, I think
Yeah,
that's.
I don't think this warrants council
Right,
question, you know,
Okay,
as
all right.
far as what we should, and
Just
again,
asking.
like, no, I
It's a
understand.
good question.
But again, you said we're advisory, so,
Yes, right.
you know, I don't think we need to go to council in order to make an advisory decision, per se. I mean, I could make a motion. Trying to think of how I want to word it, or if I want to word it. You know, I'm thinking in the direction of, you know, move to go with Hampshire Council if and only if, you know, the information we're looking for comes back within, let's say, 4 weeks. And if not, you know, kind of like, almost like a two-part,
right. And if it's,
contingent upon,
right,
but that,
yeah, that's tough, because
that's too cloudy.
that would be contingent if the order was called for a reduced rate because they have a supplier involved.
Yeah,
Then it'd be subject to that. I think otherwise, if it was just gonna keep the rate the same, then it almost seems like we'd be better off going with Colonial since they were subbed out to do the application.
Right.
That's my opinion.
And how long would you recommend for the contract to run?
The
Because, I mean, it's-
contracts, I've noticed two different kinds. I saw a 3-year and a 5-year.
Now, was this the consultant contract or the supply?
The consultant
The
contract.
consultant.
Right, and that's actually in the matrix.
That's the only thing I want to ask, yeah, really, yeah, thanks, Jeff.
No.
And 5 years scares me.
That's the
Wow.
consultant agreement, though.
That's what they want.
I think it's in the
That's what
matrix.
they want. And
They want long contract.
Yeah, they want long contracts. It's like cable TV, they want long contracts.
Colonial, when their length of contract, says contracts greater than 3 years usually carry risks, which I agree with that, because you can't predict the market. So they recommend is start 1 to 3 year, 1 to 3 year contracts with your fixed rates.
No, but with them,
With
I
them?
think they're gonna
Consultant
want,
themselves,
I
Right.
think with their
think it
company,
was
they're gonna
3.
want at least 3.
I think it was 3. It's in the matrix somewhere.
They may
Yeah,
be
it's
opening
on
it up
page
to,
3.
our citizens may want to go with them for a year to 3.
Right.
But I think it's gonna be hard to get them to go for less than 3 years.
Yeah, there it is right there.
But that's what I would put in a recommendation.
Consulting agreements typically 3 to 5.
Yeah, 3 to 5 years.
I would say 3, keep it at a minimum. I know it's not what they want, but this isn't a clear-cut situation right now.
Right, but, and I agree with that. Keep in mind that at least a year of that time will be the approval of DPU. Just getting that.
I know that.
Yeah, yeah, and then
Yeah.
they're gonna set our rates with a supplier. They'd probably wanna keep it to a year, just to keep it within their contract window. So we wouldn't be looking at having our citizens sign anything longer than a year at that point, I think. So it sounds like.
What's the ESA agreement?
That's the,
In this energy supply agreement.
I think so.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Because under Hampshire, on that page 3, it says aggregation agent contracts are for 5 years, so they're set. You seem to know they're set at 5 years.
That's what they want.
With them. And then under Colonial, consulting agreements are typically 3 to 5. And then supplies are 1 to 3. And Good Energy basically left the door open and they didn't put anything.
Right.
I think this matrix was great. I just want to say that. I think the committee came up with it, and there's a lot of information here that's really useful to helping us. So I just want to commend you.
It gave us a lot of
putting this
information,
together,
and it has also come up with a few sub-questions, you know, but it makes you think a lot.
Right. I loved the last question. That was the best one. Are there any complaints filed against the company through the Attorney General's office?
Oh, that's mine.
Well, I love the answer given by the company that is currently under investigation by the AG. So that was a good one.
Well, you know, it's, the Attorney General's office does good work.
Yeah.
And the fact that there's been a complaint against them doesn't mean that they're guilty,
Oh, that's correct.
and it doesn't mean that there's validity to it.
That's true.
If they get enough complaints, you know, they'll go after them.
But it's not actually a complaint.
Exactly. That's why it's not in there as a complaint.
Yeah, it's not a complaint, it's
Right.
only an investigation.
That's right. It's
Right.
an investigation.
And none of them belong to the BBB.
That's right, none of them do.
So
So
they
that's,
don't-
we should mention that. No,
So they
Better
don't get a-
Business Bureau was the other thing we required
Mhm.
the town to find out about.
Right.
And your answer was,
None of them.
None of them belong.
none of them belong, the official town response.
Right.
None of them belong, so that's not helpful at all.
No.
And I have seen this on other websites where they are members of the Better Business Bureau for other companies. Well, you've been very silent over here, Mr. Backus. I'm kind of surprised. And I don't know if you have any feelings or anything to add. We've been talking about this quite a bit, and I don't know, I think under the circumstances, I don't know how we can wait much longer and have a chance of getting some relief in the winter months for our citizens. Personally, I think any one of the 3 companies can get us lower rates than we've been faced with. And I think that's something that we need to put out and put into our paragraph
Yeah.
when you explain this to the town manager and the select board.
Right.
is that we think all of them can get us lower rates. Which is the best one? Now we're getting nitpicking here.
Right.
Because they seem to all work together to a certain extent. And certainly, we've got protections built in, our contract, our lawyers, your brain power, the town manager's brain power and experiences. The state of Massachusetts seems to be watching this quite carefully. So there seems to be many protections for the citizen. And you've got the opt-in or opt-out without any penalty.
Yeah.
But you realize that if you go to another separate company now, do you know how long it may take you to get into it with National Grid?
Yes.
Could be 2 months.
Right. Depends on when you applied and your application was processed within 5 days of the meter read.
Yeah, it depends if they wanted to grab you for one of the more expensive months.
That just happened to me.
That just happened to you, so you know.
My application was done 3 days before my meter read, so I couldn't get it that month, or the following month, had to be the one after.
So you paid both high bills.
I did. Not yet, but yes.
Now, who makes the final, if we were to recommend, is that up to the town manager or the board of selectmen, or how would
The
that?
town manager right now has the power to do it. She could sign a contract tomorrow. The town meeting gave her that power.
This upcoming town meeting, right?
I'm sorry?
Previous,
Oh,
the
okay.
annual.
Okay.
The-
Nice, wow.
yeah,
She has it already.
Was it the annual? It was the annual,
Yeah,
right?
I believe it was the annual one.
Okay.
Yeah, she has the power to sign a contract.
Okay.
And as soon as we knew that, I mean, we started to work on this right away to see if we could come up with a recommendation. Well, we can always give her our first and second choices. What do you think about that? And,
So that might not be a bad idea. Say we looked at these 3 companies and this is how we rate them in our order of recommendation.
Yeah, there you go.
with and again, with the information that we've received up till this point, because there's more information coming in all the time.
That's true.
Right.
But if you can't wait forever before you hit the ball on a golf course. At some point, you gotta get up there and you gotta hit the ball. Can't keep stepping out of the batter's box.
Through the chair, if the committee would like, I would gladly make the similar presentation and findings to the town manager.
Great.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. If we make our recommendations, we rank them, whatever the committee decides, 1, 2, 3, 1 being most recommended, or whatever. I think we should afford the manager the same information. And like you said, some explanation as well.
Well, with this in
on why
mind,
we made our decision.
if you want to make a motion to that, I have cards here with 3 for your first choice, 2 for your
I
second.
think we can just, okay, I see what you're saying.
And then you count up the points, and you don't have a tie. But on the selection process, I would hope that if you made a motion, since Eric's been in on this process since the beginning, that we're not talking about a vote, then we would vote on it after that. But if we were to select 1 and 2, to let him be part of that selection process, and then we would vote as to what our 1 and 2 are. And I don't, we gave the same option when we were choosing the wind turbine and alternative energy bidders for the contracts to add them
Okay.
as a courtesy, not on actually voting on it, but on the selection of the companies. Matt, I think you came in later, so
I
I'm not
understand.
gonna,
That's okay.
I'm not trying to offend anyone.
It's all right, I'm advising to the committee, it's fine.
Well, you're our advisors, so, we need your help, and to communicate it also to the town manager.
I mean, we could hold, so there wouldn't be a tie, I mean, we could hold, actually, there'd be 2 separate votes, 2 separate motions. First motion would be to recommend the number 1 choice, however that motion went.
Yeah,
That company would be
we
number 1.
can do that if you prefer.
And then number 2 would be,
Sure, we can do that.
Number
I mean, if
3.
you'd like to, sure, we can.
I think that would be just as quick and easy as anything else.
What do you want to do?
You guys-
mean, I have no problem if we waited till the next meeting, but I mean, if you
Oh,
want to.
okay, well, see, this is your input, this is what we're looking for.
Yeah,
Well, is that your preference?
I mean, it's not, you know, it's not like you're putting it off till the summer or something, I mean, you know, I don't think 3 weeks is a big deal in the whole scheme of things,
Well, remember that that's coming from their lawyer to our
yeah.
town planner. Now, the state, he didn't talk to the state about that, right?
No,
The state didn't say they're gonna have an answer on Hampshire in 3 weeks.
They won't.
and they wouldn't.
They won't spill their guts on
No.
anything like that.
They waited over a year on some of the other applications.
So is their attorney being truthful or just being an optimist? I don't know.
He's guessing,
Yeah.
he's guessing.
I think it's fair to assume that should we hear something at any point in the next 3 weeks, even the next couple of months, because the process will take a little time, that is substantial enough to change our minds, we can course correct and revisit.
Sure.
No one's signing a contract within the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Sure.
So we can at least make a recommendation, get that process started, and then we just fast follow once you get more information and say, is it compelling enough that we would revisit our original decision? If it is all predicated off of based upon the information we have today,
Exactly.
then I think that's what we do. But I think 3 weeks are gonna go by, we're not gonna know anything new. And so then do we decide, well, do we wait a little bit more?
Yeah, we can keep our pulse on that. The committee would
So do you
would
feel,
like
do you
that.
want to wait before we make our recommendations, or do you want to make the recommendations? and
I'm
then-
comfortable making a
And then have the
recommendation
chance
right
to
now.
change it? No, I agree. All right, well,
If you wanna have a motion.
I'll step up and I will make, I'll move that our number one recommendation be Colonial Power.
I second.
Okay, any discussion?
And I'll second the motion.
So they did.
Maureen did.
Oh, okay.
But that's okay. So maybe if we can put that in the minutes, then, thank you. Any other discussion? Anything to be added? Okay, go right around the bend. Jeff?
Aye.
Maureen?
Aye.
Jack?
Yeah.
I'll say yes, too. Did we want to have a second choice? In case something comes in and blows that ship up.
Well, with the information presently, I would make the second choice be Hampshire Council of Governments.
Okay, do I have a second? Jack Backus seconds that. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, we'll go right around, go the opposite way this time. Jack?
Yes.
Yes. Maureen?
Yes.
Yes.
Jeff? And I say yes. And that means that third one would be Good Energy. Great. Anything else we need to do on this, and of course, anytime we pass something, that's good to have that in the minutes, if there's a vote on anything. Any other comments from the planners?
No?
That's with the information we have so far.
Correct.
Okay.
That seems in line with our general discussion too.
Yes.
Okay, let's move to the planners report, if there was any.
I have done my report.
I can add, I handed out at the beginning of the meeting, a small summary of work for the business study from SED, they performed the feasibility study for the wind turbine located on Prospect Hill. And this is the final phase of the study, which will include, there's some more detail in here, it's going to include some public outreach, a balloon test, where they'll attach a balloon to some guy wires to show the height and location of the tower.
That wasn't done already?
Not yet. No, We've been awaiting
Okay.
approval from the state to proceed. We received that approval in November, and they, SED had, I guess, year-end business to close out before they could kind of pick this back up.
Would have been kind of hard to do it this winter anyway.
It's true, with all the snow. Though, my understanding is if the acoustic study, which has been added on to this, it's best to do that in the winter. I don't know why, but so there, I
The leaves are off the trees.
guess that makes
There's
sense,
no-
right?
There's no buffer.
Less,
Good point.
less
With the
sound
foliage.
dampening.
Yeah, it's a good
And a
point.
balloon test as well.
Yeah,
You don't want to
balloon
really do
test
the balloon test in the middle of the summer when everything is in
is grown in full.
full bloom.
Mm.
That's true, too.
The flicker study will also be done in part with the business plan, as well as an update on the economics of the project. So, I think in the next,
Although, if I may though, the acoustics is good and bad depending on what time of the year. Summertime, like we discussed, windows are open, so you'd hear more.
Right, that's
But in
true.
the wintertime, there's
The
no
ambient.
foliage
yeah,
to buffer, but the windows are closed.
yeah,
And
Well, I
most of
think
those
they-
homes have pretty good soundproofing.
Yeah,
they're tracking an ambient noise. So it's just like the natural noise, highway, and
right,
you
right.
know,
Yeah, isn't it so much above it's so much above the ambient.
the ambient, right?
Yeah, the one they did in the Kingston area came out at 6, and the state level is 10. So that just blew all the arguments out of the opponents of the wind turbine in that case.
Mhm. And I know that there has been some opposition to this
That was the reason
So
for the
this-
sound test.
study, and yeah, the hope is that these tests, this next phase, will be able to address, much of the concern that's been raised regarding the opposition. So I think this will be an interesting part of the study.
Well, perhaps you should make sure that something goes to the people who put in the petition
Mhm.
on all this information.
Mhm.
I mean, because specifically they had asked for that, especially in the sound test, they should
Right,
have some courtesy, I would hope,
yeah.
to give it to them.
Yeah, and my hope is that that the committee can work with SED to talk about what the public outreach might look like.
Sure.
And we can make some recommendations. So we'll be brokering that conversation. Like I said, I just received this morning. So it looks like they want to move in the next couple of months on these tests. So hopefully-
Wonderful.
So we could expect probably somebody from them coming in,
That's-
maybe to the next meeting, or?
That's my
Okay.
expectation. I know they're out of New York, and that they try to group their visits when they're kind of in the area, so hopefully we can line that all up. Mhm.
Okay, as of now, we have no agenda for another meeting, so when you come up with an agenda for us, we will have that meeting.
Sure. This was a heavy hitter. That's good.
Yeah, absolutely, and any changes on the previous, the major information, if you could get it out to us if we need to convene a meeting to discuss it or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah, and I've located the WPI study. And
Great.
I forgot to bring it.
You forgot to bring it for us.
Yes. So I apologize for that.
But you have located
But I
it.
have located it.
Which
It does
WPI
exist.
study?
It's the wind turbine, the one,
Oh, yes, under
related to the wind
what
turbine.
page?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So I
It's
just,
it's a good study, it's comprehensive.
so we'll get that out to you guys.
All 3 studies said basically the same thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
In the summary from SED in today's report, it said that there were no major, walls to the project that they saw. Like it looks feasible, it looks like it would work, it could be successful. There seems there's concern with financial, environment regarding support from the state for wind projects. Their assessment is that the nation, and Massachusetts especially, has moved in the direction of solar. And so the credits and the support for a project like this, especially one that involves only one turbine instead of a wind farm, it may be harder to get the financial support.
And did they bring in the higher electric prices? Because they
I
would be
didn't-
compensated at that higher level.
And what the report said is that even with the adjustments, they didn't see a very big difference in the return.
I would completely argue with that, because the most productive time for a wind turbine is in the winter months, not the summer. The summer, they may earn almost nothing.
Yeah,
And it's in the winter that the prices are up to
they spike.
16 cents a kilowatt, which is nowhere near. They were projecting it at 11 cents.
Right.
So how can you have in your top producing months raise it 5 cents per kilowatt and not have an effect on the project? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
That doesn't finish with me.
The other component is that the original plan was, the scenario was done with the assumption that the town would be the off-taker for the energy generated.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the climate has changed in that direction with, at least from a municipal perspective, the town having entered into 20-year contracts with these solar farms for their energy.
Well, that's what I was, this was probably prior to that.
I think it was. Because those agreements were signed late last year, and this happened.
Now, do we know what percentage of the town's usage this would generate? Because I
This,
think there's a 6%.
Yeah.
I think we're at 94, right, with the other.
I can never,
Right,
can
it's
never
either
remember if it's
94 or
94 or
90.
98, but it's
Well, I was thinking 94 or 96.
96.
Somewhere thereabouts
I know there is a
of what
gap.
we're committed to.
Mhm.
But as long as this is less than whatever's left,
Right,
we'd be okay.
yeah, yeah. So-
Although, if we go above, and I think you brought this up, Bob, possibly at the last meeting, we're looking at the town usage, the town buildings, where we don't want to go over 100%. But if we do go over 100%, can some of that be put back to the residents? You
My
know?
assumption is that
And I don't know if
it would be
that's,
possible. It'd be like if we built a solar farm and we sold the energy to
we just sell it back to the grid.
the grid. Yeah.
And would you consider it sponsoring some legislation where you, I would like to see any earned money go to the reducing of the tax rate. I would think that if, all this is a law that says you can use only up to 100%. They change laws all the time, so all we have to do is change it to 135%. A town can do that, it's a simple amendment on a bill.
Although if we were to sell back the additional to the grid, would be getting money from National Grid, which would indirectly offset the tax rate. You know what I mean? It'd be money coming in,
Yes.
another revenue source coming into the general fund.
Absolutely.
So it wouldn't directly go to the tax, but
No,
it would help.
which is where I'd like to see it go directly to the
And
taxes.
then again, would we actually get money or would we get a credit?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, now you're
But
getting
how-
a credit.
But how could it be more of a credit than we already use? You know, unless our usage went way up. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
But I
well-
mean, if we're at, 96% or 94% now,
There is another alternative you may want to offer to National Grid. National Grid in the surrounding towns is building large solar fields.
No.
Solar collectors only collect sunlight. When the sunlight goes down, then the fields aren't producing anything. And that's where they complement, the wind turbine and solar fields complement each other so beautifully. The wind turbine would then continue to produce electricity, And it's even better than that at night. But it's even better than that if I can finish this idea. And the idea goes on further in that the high production period for the wind turbine is in the winter months.
And the sun is out west.
Correct. And when you have snow over these solar collectors, I mean, so many of the businesses had,
This year was tough for
was
them.
tough on the solar collectors. And in the summer, when you get the maximum production from the solar collectors, you get the minimum production from the wind turbine. So these are almost like they should be married to each other. Maybe National Grid with its fields and the surrounding towns, which they've already proposed, would like to pay for this, and maybe even ownership. But that's, you go into the private ownership aspect. I mean, but that's, it's something that would go beyond credit, would go to cash coming to the town.
If National Grid issues checks, or, sorry.
They issue a lot of payments. Yeah. They pay a lot of things out. I mean, they're building these solar fields.
Right. No, I
And
understand.
this would be at the time when they're charging us 16 cents per kilowatt hour. And that's when the wind turbine would be producing the most electricity. So maybe it would actually lower those rates a little bit. But that's for the planning department to play with that idea.
Sure. Curious.
It is an idea, because these, I mean, there are parts of the world where they put wind turbines and solar arrays together for that very reason, because they complement each other beautifully. Okay, anything else you'd like to add? This has been a long meeting, I think a productive meeting, and if there's nothing else, I would, yes, Maureen?
May I just circle back? So, the November 17th and December 1 meeting minutes, are they approved as long as those changes are put in, or do I need to bring them back?
No, they're approved now.
Approved?
Yeah,
So I'll make
that's
those
one way we
changes?
can approve them is if I ask, are there any additions, deletions, or substitutions? And if no one objects, it's approved.
And everyone has the January 17th, so we can look at those
At the
at the
next
next
meeting.
meeting? Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
If no one objects to that procedure that I
That's
just
fine.
used. Okay. Well, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Sorry?
All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much for your help.
Sure thing.
That was great.